Are you going to kick off the introduction, Anthony?
I can, yes. Ready?
Are we going?
Hey guys, welcome to
Here we go.
the
Now we're
weekly.
going.
Yeah, are we?
I don't know. I feel
All
like
right,
we
now
should.
we're in. Okay, welcome to the weekly multifamily webinar. This is we've been doing this. What is this? Our fifth get together, six or so?
Something like that.
Yeah, we just get together every week on Wednesday nights to discuss a topic that's pertinent to multifamily investing. We have other professionals on to talk about things like investing with a self-directed IRA. We had a good conversation last week with an insurance broker, which is a really interesting team member to have on the crew. And so a little bit about us real quickly. Dan and I are partners at Invictus Capital. We're apartment syndicators. So is Rodney. He's also out of the Twin Cities here. Well, actually a little bit south of the cities. So can't quite claim Twin City status, but
He's in the
Rodney,
neighborhood.
I'll just claim Southern status. How about
there
that?
you go.
There you go.
Minnesotans, all of us. So tonight we're going to be talking about financial freedom and the road to financial freedom, why it's important, some things to think about as you pursue that goal, why it's a worthy goal. I think we're going to talk a little bit about self-limiting beliefs. Probably is going to come up at some point tonight. And one of the big limiting beliefs I think people have is money's bad, or I'm not able to earn money or keep money. I'm bad with money. So I think we're going to tackle a couple of those topics tonight. And then
not to mention that some people think you have to have money to make money.
Ooh, that's a good one too. Yeah. We're going to dive into a lot of these commonly held myths and kind of debunk them a little bit, and then talk about it through the lens of multifamily investing and how that's played a role in our personal journeys and how it might be able to play a role in your journey as well. So, all right. Intro
Like
done.
it.
I'm done
Good
for the
intro.
night, guys. I did my bit.
You can take a nap.
Yep. I'm like the basketball player who's only on the team to do the center tip off, and then he just walks off the court.
Are there going to be a lot of
makes
sports
lots of money.
references tonight? Or
Yes, Dan.
is it going to keep happening? Okay.
Tonight's a sports night.
So I'll just nod and smile whenever that topic comes up.
For the most part, Dan, I'm going to be right there with you, I think.
I like it.
So where do we want to kick it off tonight, guys?
Well, I think it would probably be a good place to start defining financial freedom, because I don't know
Yes.
if everyone's 100% clear on what that means. So
Well, it's kind of a moving target too, right? Like it can be kind of however you want to define it.
yeah, the way I define it is when your passive investments exceed your cost of living, right? And everyone's cost of living is different. So like, my brother-in-law, he's got a very the amount of money it takes him to be happy on a monthly basis is fairly low compared to other people. Like if you were to go to LA or Manhattan and find people that have a pretty bougie lifestyle. So, whatever your ideal lifestyle is, whatever you need to be doing to be happy, could include a lot of travel, it could include anything you want. But whenever those passive investments are able to fully satisfy that, and you don't actually have to go out and work for money, that's essentially financial freedom in my book.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I think some people think that you have to have your house paid off. I'd probably say that in addition to that, having minimal debt, not including your house would fall into that realm. But yeah, I think most of part is having your passive income, and that's the key, is passive income exceed your outgo.
Yeah. I'd argue the debt point too. Because as long as that passive income pays for all your obligations, you could be financially free and have boatloads of debt, especially if it's good debt, like real estate debt, or
True.
just have a mortgage on your house.
Yes, I guess I didn't define the difference between what we call good debt and bad debt. That's 100%.
Yeah.
I like that definition a lot, Dan, because I think it's really easy to conceptualize it as like a perpetual energy machine, right? Mm-hmm. Like it doesn't really matter what the amount of output is in terms of debts and like expenses, if the income that's coming in passively without having to actually trade your time for $1 exceeds that. So if you could have $1 million of expenses every month, but if you're making $10 million a month in passive income, well, who cares, right? Like you're so far above and beyond that. So
Exactly. So, yeah, and I think another, now that we've kind of defined it, I think one of the main roadblocks for people is it's not really in their realm of reality. Like they don't really consider it an option because it's not really in the default narrative. Growing up, you go to school and you're from day one, you're kind of conditioned to go through the process of going through high school, then go to college, then get a job. And then it's just always kind of implied that you're going to go to work. Right. So I don't think, I think there's a lot of people out there that haven't even really considered it as an option, not having to work. And
Yeah. Yeah. One of the interesting things about investing, I think, for most people is they think about it as a very future oriented activity. So we're investing for retirement, we're investing for the future, but not, I don't think culturally, a lot of people have been taught to think about investing as a means for immediate freedom, right? Like disconnecting yourself from that W-2 job so that you have income that's flowing in excess of your expenses, and then those investments can actually just replace your work entirely.
Yeah, I think Dan, hit the nail on the head when he said that, when you go to school, you're conditioned to think a certain way. And this is where I think that a lot of people have to rethink how they view that, and to change their way of thinking into I guess an entrepreneurial mindset, instead of that work for money. We need to get into the habit of making money work for us.
Yeah, and I think that also kind of flies in the face of our society, which really sort of glorifies work and hustle and grinding and like doing a lot and not sleeping and not resting. Like that whole, that grinding lifestyle is so glorified these days. It's almost like, contradictory to a financial freedom lifestyle where, you basically just do whatever you want all day. And for a lot of people, that's still some kind of quote unquote work. Like myself included, I would never like stop having projects that I'm working on. It's just, they wouldn't be necessary to pay the bills. But yeah, I think of the whole like grinding, like kind of Gary Vaynerchuk attitude where like it's glorified to be working your ass off and not sleeping is also kind of, hurting people when they're trying to get ahead in life. They always think more is better.
Well, I would say that's mostly true, but you also have, what are you working for, right? I mean, if you're working for your financial freedom, and then that involves a section of hard work that's going to have a great reward, that's an on-lasting, perpetual reward with the passive income. That's good work.
Yeah, no, you're preaching to the choir. I mean, I work my ass off all the time, but to your point, it's for that future date when I don't have to, right? When there's kids around and all of a sudden the priorities change. I want to make sure that all that grinding I did in my 20s and 30s has set me up with something where it's up to me if I want to be busy with a ton of projects or if I just want to, hang out with my kids in the morning and then,
or go to Europe for 30 days,
go to Europe, or just like volunteer and just like, do other things that are productive, but not necessarily, kind of like the Bill Gates thing. Accumulate a bunch of money and then just go solve all the problems in the world and like make that your new quote unquote job, even though he doesn't need money. It's just what he's chosen to do with all those resources he's accumulated. So
yeah, and I think that for me, that's the biggest reason to pursue financial freedom. Why I think it's a topic Dan and I both feel really passionately about, like educating and talking with people. And I think Rodney, you probably share in that as well, because you can't really pursue your highest purpose in life when you're worrying about where your next paycheck is going to come from. When you're worried about paying your mortgage or where dinner is going to come from, or if you can afford to take the kids on vacation, then you've transitioned to playing kind of a status and signaling game. And I think that's where the hard work, like the hustle porn, kind of comes in, is you can get into these ruts of working 80-hour weeks and the financial incentive doesn't really justify it, but you can always point to saying, well, look how hard I work. And that's a status symbol instead of actually working you closer towards your end state goal, which is, hey, I want to have free time so that I can focus on solving the problems that mean the most to me. Like maybe I want to go and solve malaria, like Bill Gates, right? And you can't do that when you're busy worrying about, I need to go change my tires and I don't have the money to replace that. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that grind always comes at a cost, when you're putting in the 80 hours and you're the stud at work, and, your family, if you have one, can pay the price for that. Your health can pay the price for that.
Mhm.
So why not, the old adage of work smarter, not harder, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so I think that's maybe step one of this whole pursuit of financial freedom, is to really get clear on what that desired end state is, and then start to work back to the
Yeah.
steps that you have to start taking now.
And get clear on what that is for you. That I think that soul searching there of determining what that is for you, because what it is for me may not be what it is for you. And I think letting somebody else define that for you doesn't really ingrain it into your, like Simon Sinek says, your why. What is your why? Your why has to be yours.
I'm curious. Do you guys mind sharing your whys? I'm sure both of you guys have one.
Dan?
Sure. Yeah, my
Y'all did it to
why.
me 2 weeks ago.
Here comes the bus and throwing him under it.
Payback time. So what's my why for putting in all the work now? Like, what's my end state that I'm trying to get to?
Yeah, what's financial freedom? What's end state? Like, why is that so desirable for you?
Yeah, what's driving you?
The need for time and the ability to make choices. Because I grew up in a household that was very there was like a scarcity mindset. Lower middle class income, everything needs to be saved and conserved, and it's always this tight budget. And then there was just this really good work ethic that was instilled in me as well at the same time. So I was kind of brought up in this environment of scarce resources and, work a bunch. And, if you're lucky, you might be doing a little bit better than okay, and get a little bit of savings. But that was always kind of like best case scenario. So these days, my why is first and foremost just to create time freedom so that I can choose to allocate that time however I like. So right now, I put all my time into work, and then that's slowly shifting to have more and more time for family as kids start popping out and as parents get older. Being able to spend more time with them, throughout those stages of life, and then secondarily to be able to give back and support the community or any causes that I'm interested in supporting, and then obviously support my family as well. Make sure my parents can retire and not have to worry about, trying to get by on Social Security and that kind of thing. So those are my whys, basically: supporting the family, making time for the family, and then supporting those around me once my immediate little circle is taken care of.
Those are good whys. I like them.
So,
Rodney, you ready? You ready for the bus now, Rodney?
Sure, I'll go for it. My why is very similar to Dan's.
Can't steal my why.
Yeah, I know.
Your new why.
You have to share your why. How about that?
Perks are going first. I get the good whys.
It's very much a time thing. I mean, I don't, having a W-2, your time is driven by someone else.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want my time driven by someone else. And my why is my wife and my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And my goal on that is more time, and then the resources to be able to spend that time. So it's kind of the same thing, but my why is who I've been married to for 35 years, and my kids, and my goal in that is to be able to spend more time, to have the resources to, if we want to go to Europe or to Mexico or South America or whatever we want to do, we have the ability to do that. We can leave where I am and I can work anywhere. And I don't have to be tied down or wonder if I have enough vacation or whether I have enough money in the bank or available credit on my credit card. You know, I always make sure that I'm not in that mentality of we go on vacation, charge the credit card to its max, and then pay for it all year long so that we can do it again. You know, don't get me wrong, I like the points, but I want to be able to put it on the credit card, pay it off because I have the resources, because of the, you know, the preparation, the work that I did to get to that point.
Yeah.
So
I bet when it comes down to it, the time element is probably what everyone would choose if they really thought about it. Because I think a lot of people initially, when they think about making money from investing, they think about like things they can get and like really expensive stuff. But then I've heard a few other people phrase the question in a way where it's like, you know, put yourself in your final years of life and like, what would that version of you want the current version, like the present version of you to do, you know? And it's, you know, you rarely hear about people on their deathbed regretting that they didn't make more money. You know, it's usually like, I wish I would have spent more time with this person or that person, or, you know, done more of this, that, or the other. It's rarely a financial thing. So I bet most people's financial freedom number and their goal is probably a lot lower than they think it is. And it's really that time thing that's probably going to be the most important for people when it really comes down to it.
yeah, I think so too.
That's a critical resource that you can't get back, right?
It's true. But
Yeah,
according to you,
you always
not the
make more
most
money, you can't make
important
more
resource,
time.
right?
Yeah, well, yeah, I have a theory that it's not your most important asset, but that's for another show.
Yeah, that'll be next week's episode.
Yeah, it's interesting for me. My why isn't necessarily tied to the time aspect of it. It's tied. I had a couple years ago, and I have a cat, and the cat got really sick, and the cat needed to have a really expensive surgery. And this might seem like a really small, weird thing to like serve as a catalyst, but there's a moment where I had to do like some mental calculus and calculate what's the value of this animal's life to me, this thing that I love and I cherish it. And you might say, oh, it's just a cat, like whatever. But you know, for people that don't have children or that have animals, maybe like you really get attached to them. And I remember having to do that mental calculus and saying, okay, what's this cat's life worth to me in dollar amounts? And I was like, you know, I don't want to ever have to be in that position where it's the money that I'm making a decision based on. Like, if it's a thing that I love, I want to have the ability to save it if that's, you know, a possible option. You know, I want to be able to make the decisions based on other factors, but not because of financial considerations. And this kind of manifests itself a little bit more for me in the broader scale with my family, because my little brother's like 14, maybe 13. He has cystic fibrosis and he's doing really well. But, you know, when he was born, it was very clear, like his life expectancy was going to be a little bit abbreviated and that his medical bills are just astronomical throughout. And I never want to be in a position where I can't help somebody, like a family member or a friend or somebody coming for help for financial reasons. Like that's my big why. It's like I want to be in a position to help. And so,
yeah, there was a you guys might have seen it, thing on LinkedIn where this guy bought a new car. He went through this drive-through at McDonald's every day, and there was a lady that worked in there. It was always cheerful, always served him well, but her car broke down and she didn't have transportation, and he gave her a car. And I want to be that guy. You know, it's like, oh, you have a need, a genuine need. You know, I would like to help you with that.
Yeah.
It's like that idea that you have to have your own room in order before you can go and really help clean up the world. You have to start small and where you're at, and you don't want to. You got to be careful reaching down into the well to pull people out until you're nice and stable, so that you don't get pulled in as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very true.
All right, so let's get down to some tactical. Let's talk some brass tacks. Dan, you got some case studies and some numbers prepared, right, to walk us through just how we
I
can
have one
achieve
case
our
study.
goals. Oh, one case
Yeah.
study.
So yeah, I know that we've kind of talked about some of the theory behind this whole financial freedom thing, but what does it actually look like when we sit down and do the math? Like if someone wants to, like, let's say someone's in their 30s right now and they're working, or maybe their 40s or 50s, getting near retirement, and they're trying to figure out how do I either transition out of this whole W-2 lifestyle, or maybe I'm kind of nearing retirement here and I'm not really psyched with the whole how my 401k is looking after it's all said and done with. Like, this doesn't look like it's going to provide a really ample lifestyle for me. So like, what can I do to really take a proactive approach to that? So I just whipped up a basic spreadsheet that shows some basic projections with a pretty basic setup. So I'll just pull it up and kind of show it to you guys here. And I guess like the first step for anybody who's kind of trying to go down this financial freedom wormhole is to do the math on your own lifestyle right now and just kind of figure out, okay, what is my monthly number that I need to start generating where I don't have to go to work anymore. It might be $5,000 for some people. It might be 15 grand, 50 grand for other people every month. But just kind of figure out like what your lifestyle costs, and then all of a sudden you've got something tangible that you can work towards. And I'll pull up my example that I created here if I can remember how to share my screen. There's a button somewhere. Oh, here it is, the green bright one.
Big green button in the middle.
Yep, it was too obvious for me. Okay.
It's eluded me before as well.
Alrighty, so I have it up here. I'm going to switch screens, actually. Stop, bear with me. Okay, there we go. So you guys can see the spreadsheet, right?
Yes,
Okay.
We can.
Good. So basically, I'll show you what I whipped up here. And if there's any formula errors or like little things that are wrong, just kind of bear with me. But basically what I did is I created a scenario where someone starts investing 50 grand a year into real estate. And in this scenario, so basically they do one deal every year. And I've got it mapped out for like 20 years here. And just for the sake of simplicity, it's the exact same deal every single year. $50,000 gets invested. The annual cash on cash returns for each deal, 7% in the first year, 10% in the second year, and then 15% every year after that. There's a refi at 3 years. Return of capital via the refi is 35%, which is pretty low. I want to be somewhat conservative with it. They're all 5-year holds, and the average internal rate of return for each project is 20%. And it's basically just the exact same project over and over again, just to kind of illustrate a concept, not really to create something that's going to be ultra realistic. But I just kind of wanting to illustrate the concept so people can kind of see the compounding effect, because what we're doing with this example is for the very first investment, this hypothetical person invests 50 grand. So they, went out, they got 50 grand, they pulled it, maybe from their IRA, maybe they had some savings, whatever. So they come up with 50 grand out of pocket and put that into a deal. And then every year after that, this person starts reinvesting all of the distributions from all of their projects. So in the first year, they're taking this 35 grand, which is 7% cash on cash return. And in the next year, when they do their second deal, they're investing that 3,500 grand and they're only putting in 46,500 to get to that 50,000. And then in year 2022 here, we can see they've got cash flow from 2 properties now. So now they only have to come up with 39,900. And then in year 3, we've got a refinance coming in from our first property, and we've got cash flow from 3 properties. So now we only have to come up with 15,950. And so each year they're still putting $50,000 into an investment, But as the years go on here, the real estate starts to kind of pay for itself. And then by the time we hit 2025, between sales proceeds, refis, and cash flow, they don't have to put anything out of pocket. They can keep doing $50,000 a year investments, just using all the distributions from previous investments. And they can even start taking distributions in year 5, because with the sale of the first property, the refinance of the third property, and all the cash flow from the current properties, they're pulling in a total of about 100 grand here. And that means there's still 50 grand left over that they can just take out as income and still put in another 50 grand into an investment. And this just keeps kind of fueling itself. So essentially, they only put in about $161,000 over 5 years. But by the time we get to 2024 here, we've got 5 different deals that they're invested in. Each one, they put in about 50 grand. So that's about 250 grand worth of real estate that they've acquired. And this just keeps on kind of perpetuating itself. Mm-hmm. And then all the numbers are coming in from stuff off to the right here. So here's like the first deal. Cash flows right here. This is the refi proceeds right here in year 3. And then at the sale of the asset, they get their the rest of their equity back. And then here's all the cash flow they would have gotten. So
the interesting thing with this model, it looks like, is after 5 years of 50,000 each year, you get to the place where the investments themselves are generating the necessary next investment, and you're also producing an excess of about 50,000 or so to go towards living expenses.
Yeah, so you basically just create a $50,000 a year income, and realistically, this doesn't factor in inflation or anything like that. So, you know, in all reality, these numbers would keep going up here. This is just a very oversimplified example, just to showcase the concept for people. But you know, obviously, this person could just keep putting in 50K every year and just really blowing this portfolio up. They could also reinvest these distributions here. So like in year 2024, for example, between cash flow, refi proceeds, and the sale of the first asset, they're bringing in $100,000. They could just turn around and redeploy all of that. Instead of taking this 50,000 as income, they could redeploy that and just keep reinvesting 100 grand every year. And then it keeps growing and growing and growing and doing bigger investments. But I just made it simple and had it be 50 grand a year every year. So, you know, basically by the time we get down here to year 2040, they have received $815,000 in distributions, and they've still got a equity balance of about 247,000. So essentially, we've got about $1,063,000 that was created from just $161,000 initially. So that's about a $900,000 profit, 559%, averaging about 27% a year. And you know, that number could be higher if you reinvested more. But I think this example would kind of speak to someone who's like that person who's thinking about retiring in the next 5 to 10 years, and they just kind of want to juice up their savings that they've already got in their 401k. Like, you know, just adding an extra 50 grand of income is pretty achievable if you kind of break it down like this. And this IRR, just so you get kind of a clear picture of the whole thing here, this stream of cash going out and then cash coming in works out to be about a 25% IRR, more or less. And this is, you know, pretty conservative assumptions as well. So in all reality, with the deals that we've done and the deals that we've seen other operators do, if you're with a good operator, you're probably going to be getting IRRs that are a little bit higher than this 20%. That's probably not what you're going to see on the initial marketing packages that they put out. But when deals actually get done and, you know, go all the way to the finish line, more than likely this average project IRR is going to be a little bit higher than 20%. So I think this is a pretty conservative illustration.
So Janelle has a question here. She's asking, what is this hypothetical person investing in? Is it commercial real estate, single family houses, multifamily rentals, syndications?
Well, I'm partial to syndications. But, you know, for this example, this could be applied to anything that's got a 20% IRR. right?
Mhm.
That produces some kind of cash flow. So it could be other types of real estate. You're talking to apartment guys right now, so that's where
We're
our
biased.
minds naturally go. But this would be any cash flowing investment that you're very confident is going to produce an IRR of 20%. This model would still hold up.
Mhm. Yeah,
It would
and from our
probably,
perspective in
oh,
particular, we look at it through the lens of syndications because this model allows a person to completely passively invest into real estate. And so when we're talking about creating passive income, you just put that 50,000 into a syndication, the operators are operating it. Whereas if we were looking at this through the lens of single family homes or small multifamily, those can also be really, really powerful, but you're probably going to be a little bit more actively involved and
Mhm.
you might never be able to fully disengage and be passive.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think this is helpful for a lot of people because I know a lot of investors that I've worked with aren't that good at visualizing, like, how this can play out long term. Like they can kind of get their head around the deal that's in front of them and like what the returns are like for that, and they can wrap their head around that one deal. But actually forecasting like the next 20 years, most people, unless they really like to kind of build spreadsheets and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
can't really picture like, okay, how can this really become another paycheck that's coming in where I don't have to go out and do anything. So I think it's just seeing it laid out like this helps simplify it and make it seem a little bit more attainable. Because even in this example, coming up with 50 grand, um, you know, not impossible for a lot of people. And then every year it gets a little bit easier. And then by year 5, you're not putting anything in, but it's just, a self-fueling machine more or less. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this ties in nicely with what Rodney had mentioned earlier, and is a concept you'll find in The Richest Man in Babylon and a lot of other financial help books is, making your money work for you. And this is
mhm,
it can be really hard, like you're pointing out, on a 20-year horizon to say how hard exactly is this money going to be working for me. But until you
mhm,
plot it out, you can see it can be really powerful. And the effects start to compound and get that flywheel going really, really fast, way faster than you would suspect. So like within a
mhm,
5-year horizon here, you discontinued, you took only half of the proceeds and reinvested it. But if you really
mhm,
wanted to turbocharge that, if you had a longer horizon, maybe you have a W-2 that you really like, you don't want to leave,
mhm.
and you just keep reinvesting all of it. And that snowball just gets so big so quickly.
Yeah, I think that's most of the people that I'm working with now that are um, like under 45 to 50. Like most people are just like, okay, if I'm getting 20+%, like put every dollar back in and I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
see if I can scrape some other money together somewhere else to keep, throwing wood on the fire basically. But
Go sell some blood.
I'll have to, after we're done with this, I'll have to just kind of adjust this model a little bit and just reinvest 100%. And that model would basically illustrate just trying to maximize your net worth and not necessarily like your income. So if you're in that situation where you've got your income covered, you have no desire to quit your job, but you just really want to ramp that net worth up and accumulate a significant amount of wealth, reinvesting every penny is the way to go, without a doubt.
Yeah, and something that I really like about this model that you've created, Dan, is that we talk about it a lot, is that this idea that you really need to protect your principal, protect the wealth that you are accumulating, and that
Mhm.
this is not like a really outrageously aggressive investment strategy. Like the numbers are very plain Jane. There's nothing too crazy about them. They're very achievable
Mhm.
for most real estate deals. So.
Yeah, I think Grant Cardone puts it best. I mean, I don't know what people think about him these days, but he's got a line
Dan,
that I like.
I thought we were gonna make it through tonight without a Grant mention, but
No,
talking to
every
Uncle
every
G.
episode,
every
every
night.
episode, I'm going to bring him up. It really helps the SEO if he's in our
It helps his
right.
SEO.
uh, but he's got a saying that he says quite a bit, which is real estate is not get rich quick, it's get rich for sure, which is kind of cheesy, but at the same time,
Mm,
it's kind of true. It's a very good way to
it's
accumulate a
predictable.
lot of wealth. It's boring, it's slow, but I mean, the probability of you accumulating a lot of wealth if you do it properly is very high. It's just not a get rich quick scheme. So I think a lot of people, you know, they see that they've actually got to put some money down on the table for the first few years before any kind of substantial income builds up. Like, I think that turns a lot of people off in an age where everyone's so used to, Amazon Prime delivering, their groceries showing up at their door in 2 hours, Netflix, all that stuff. When they see something like this, where, investing takes a little time, like, I think some people get turned off and they start hopping on Google and looking for other get rich quick schemes that
Yeah. And make no mistake, like, generating 50,000 and coming up with that each year for 5 years straight or whatever, like that's not an insignificant sum of money for people, right? Like,
it's only 50 grand the first year. And it's
that's
46.
true. So there's 46,
Then
there's 39. But
then it's
generating
15.
that money is initially very difficult. It might be, depending on like what your W-2 job or what your current income situation looks like. It could be really scraping and scratching to make that happen. And another core principle of financial freedom is really living within your means and reinvesting in yourself and paying yourself first. And so it might be hard in those first couple of years, but who says it? There's a phrase. It's like, you live like nobody else does now, so that you can live like nobody else can later, right? And
that's my buddy. Well, no, not my buddy, but that's Dave Ramsey.
Oh, damn it! Oh, Dan can't make it through an episode without Grant, and I can't make it an episode without Dave Ramsey. Dang it! But it's good advice, right? Like, deferring the gratification, and it might not be easy in those first few years, but once that flywheel gets going, it's worth it.
Yeah, well, that's a good point you bring up too. The initial investment is another thing that can pop up as a mental roadblock for people pretty quickly, and kind of shut them down from looking any farther, because they see something they perceive as not quite that attainable. So they eliminate it as an option. Say, "Oh, I don't have 50 grand. I don't know where to get it. So, right, I'm going to go look for something else that only takes $1,000 or $2,000 or something like that." So, kind of repositioning the way you think about problems is really important. So instead of saying, to quote Robert Kiyosaki, instead of saying, "I can't afford that," ask yourself how you can, pose it as a question instead of as a blanket negative statement that something can't be done, and start asking yourself, how can I find 50 grand? Right. And also, maybe there is a way to do this where the initial investment isn't 50 grand. Maybe there's someone I can work with where their minimum is 25 or 20. Maybe there's a way for me to, take a look at some other resources I have. It could be life insurance. It could be your 401k. It could be your IRA accounts. It could be HELOC. It could be Cousin Joey. There's tons of resources out there, and it might just be starting a side hustle so that you can start to accumulate some extra cash to put into stuff like this. So there's just a million resources out there. It's just a matter of people trying to figure out what combination of those resources fits their situation and their personality.
Yeah, I want to take this back to what earlier Rodney talked about a little bit, and is this idea that it takes money to make money, and it's both true and it's both false simultaneously. So it's a little bit of a paradox, because if you want to make money passively off the back of your money, then yes, it takes money to make money. Like, you need in this example, $50,000 to get started. But to your point of like starting a side hustle or creating alternative revenue streams, that doesn't necessarily take a lot of money. There's a lot of ways. Like, Gary Vaynerchuk's a big fan of garage sale flips and retail arbitrage, right? So there's ways that you can go and generate. So if you're looking at it from a business perspective, it doesn't take money to make money. But if you want to live off the fruits of passive investment, then you're going to need a little bit of money.
Yeah, you just need to provide value for other people in some way, shape, or form, basically. And I mean, there's been trillions of dollars created in the past month. Like, there's more than enough money out there. Like, there's no scarcity of money. There's more money getting created every single day. It's just a matter of you providing value to someone somewhere to generate some kind of income for you, and then you're off to the races.
And depending on where where people work, a lot of times there's money available that they're unaware of in retirement funds that they can borrow against. to make this initial investment. And then when you get down here into year 5, you can take and put that money back. And
Yeah, and I'm not a
pay
CPA, but I believe there's some rumblings about some relaxing of some of the early withdrawal penalties on
I think during
401ks
this
right now.
COVID time, didn't they say that you could, and no, don't quote me on this, but I seems like I heard one of the reports talked about $100,000 withdrawal penalty free during this period.
I think, but yeah, definitely talk to your CPA to confirm that. But I think,
Yeah, don't take
like
our
I
advice.
said, there's stuff everywhere. They're printing money every day. It's just right now there's a bunch of money flying around, and there's a bunch of opportunities for people to, just reach up and grab some. I mean, there's just so much money getting created. So there's so many opportunities out there right now. I think it could be tough for people to notice when there's something negative going on, but in reality, there's so many opportunities for people to take advantage of a negative situation. And I'm not saying exploit it, but you're stuck at home. You've got time. There's money getting printed every day. You could start 3 different side hustles right now for most people. They're just turn off Netflix and you'll get so much done.
Janelle asks, but don't you have to be able to prove that you've been negatively impacted by the COVID-19 virus to take advantage of these programs? And Janelle, to my understanding, that is true. A couple of weeks ago, we had Scott Maurer on the show here. He's with Advanta IRA, and so he works a lot with people taking their retirement plans from like a 401k and turning it into a self-directed IRA that they can then use to invest in alternative vehicles. And so he was talking a little bit about that. He'd be a great person. I can give you his information if you want to reach out and get more details, but it's kind of an evolving situation, and the government hasn't been super clear about what all the terms and conditions and parameters are. So it's a bit of a gray area quite yet how they're going to actually enforce and what that'll look like.
Again, I'm not a CPA, but the way things have been going so far, no one's confirming anyone's claim to being being affected by COVID because everybody's impacted. Like I can't think of one person that's. I mean, clearly there's tons of companies that are getting tons of money that shouldn't be getting it. So no one's sitting there saying, "Oh, you know what, this guy was negatively impacted," because you could pretty much say everyone's able to say that they've been negatively impacted some way.
Yeah, because you would have to figure out what the definition of impacted is, because there's definitely everybody in the entire United States has been impacted in one way or another.
Yeah, the government's philosophy right now is like, let's just shove a bunch of money in everyone's hands and we'll figure it all out later. Like they're not checking anything. They're just handing out money like crazy. And I'm not saying go out and scam the system. I'm just saying there's a lot of cash flying around. So you wouldn't know it from some of the businesses that are going out of business, but when you print that much money, there's cash going around. So this is a great time for people to provide value. Look for limitations in society. Look at, especially right now, there's innovative entrepreneurs all over the place. There's a gym in our local neighborhood here that, they're not able to operate. So what are they doing? They are going around and renting out all of their weights and equipment to local people. All you do is send them a message and say, "Hey, I want to rent a couple dumbbells." Okay, $20 a week. We'll drop them off at your condo. Right? It's a great little resourceful thing you can do to create revenue. I mean, renting 4 dumbbells for $20 a week, they're making a killing on that. And I'm doing it because I'm desperate to work out.
We just splurged $1,800 on a full weight system of dumbbells. Like weights.
Okay, well, at least I paid less than you.
Yeah, they're super expensive, but we have a little workout space in our garage, so
you guys have a pretty good setup. So
we got to get swole. But this ties into something from a book that I really enjoy, which is the Go Giver, and I'd highly recommend it to anybody. There's a law, and I think it's the law of compensation, that says your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them. And so, really looking through that lens, how many people are you serving? How well are you serving them? That's the key to massive value.
That goes right along with if anybody remembers Zig Ziglar.
Yep.
One of his big sayings was, You'll get everything in life if you help enough other people get what they want in life.
Yeah. I've always found, I should say always, but in the last like 5-6 years where I've been on this kind of entrepreneurial path, whenever I stopped worrying about making money and just started trying to help as many people as possible and never asked anybody for any money and just, basically just tried to solve everybody's problems who are around me, like it all just kind of works out. Like money will flow to you if you prioritize solving other people's problems and helping other people. It's the people who go out with the intention of trying to get something. If they're going out actively looking to make money and they're just, if that's their primary motive, it's gonna be obvious, and you're either just gonna come off super salesy or super pushy, or you're gonna be, trying to sell something that you aren't passionate about, and that's gonna be transparent. So, just help people, and the whole money thing will just work itself out.
Exactly.
Yeah, if you're trying to be overly transactional, very one-to-one, like I put in this much effort for this person and therefore I reap this much reward, then you're really locked into it. It's a two-way. It's a two-way blade, right? It cuts both ways in the sense that you're only ever going to get exactly then what you've been demanding. There's no serendipitous exponential growth that occurs, and I think the thing that happens when you give first from a lens of just giving value and trying to solve other people's problems is you really can't calculate the downstream benefits of that. It's incalculable.
Yeah, and then there's the added bonus where if you do something for somebody else, you help them out, you solve a problem, whatever it is, and you don't get any money out of it, like, well, guess what? You still got the satisfaction of helping somebody. So
you did a good thing.
Yeah, like that's I mean, that doesn't keep the lights on, but still feels good. So like that's like your worst case scenario. You help somebody out and you feel good about yourself. And then best case scenario is you actually start to generate income from it.
And I can totally see this because, you guys know I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, and
I think I've seen you on there.
Yeah,
once or twice.
I tend to post.
And it's amazing my goal is to sow value in other people's lives, whatever that may look like. And I have people contact me quite often, and it's just to talk and get to know one another, to build that network. And more often than the other, we get most of the way through the conversation, and their question to me is, what can I do for you? What is your immediate need? What do you need? And it's not like, oh, hey, can you pay my water bill? But it's,
maybe try asking that next time.
Yeah,
I got a couple water bills.
When I said that, I thought that.
Like, if you don't ask, the answer is no.
But I know it's like I just got off the phone right before this. I got off the phone with a guy, and he's same question, and I said, we're working on a deal, and we're going to need capital raisers, and so that is sowing a seed that later on down the road, I'm not asking the guy for money, but he's asking me, what can we do? Which means that opens it up later on to do business together, but that's not in the forefront. The forefront is the relationship there. Yeah. And I can't stress that enough. It's really the relationship.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people put the cart before the horse. I've noticed that with networking. There's some people that'll go to networking events and it's very clear they are there with their interests in mind. And there's other people who are just going to meet people and try to provide value. And it's really obvious who's who. So,
hey, before we move off of this spreadsheet onto if we were going to go to something else, I got one tidbit of.
This is my one visual for the day.
This is your one visual. So
we are milking this,
leaving it up there as long as we can. Well, I have a visual to go with this. So if
let's see it.
One of the things that
better not be better than mine. I'm going to be really upset.
I don't know. That's a pretty
okay, it is
spreadsheet right there.
I'll stop share. Do you want me to stop or?
Yeah. Go ahead and pop off of there and I'll put this up. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to real quickly point out for people that maybe don't know our stories and how the three of us met. All of us met at networking events at one point or another. And those relationships, like tying back to what you're saying, Rodney, about them being so important and going into them looking to give value. I remember the very first conversation that Dan and I had with you at the Pine Financial Intelligent Investor Summit. They need to shorten that name, first of all. That's a really long name.
Just call it Pine.
Yeah, we just had a conversation. Nobody was trying to get anything out of anybody, and you actually gave us a really interesting tidbit about monetizing. What was it? Fiber optic Wi-Fi?
Yeah, internet.
Giga something, right?
Gigafy, I think. Yeah. And I remember that being like, wow, that's super cool. I'd never heard about that, and like leaving with that bit of value. And it's the same with Dan and I. Like when we met last year at a different conference, we just went to lunch, we chatted throughout the day, and we both went our separate ways, not thinking, oh, I need to get something out of that guy. It was more, that was cool. That was a good relationship to have. I'm glad to know that person now. Or at least I'm speaking from my perspective, Dan. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
Dan was looking for somebody who knew about sports.
I mean, I was looking for
not the guy.
Oh, hold on, my Cortana's trying to talk to me.
Well,
could you guys hear that when that popped up?
I didn't hear it.
One of the things that goes along with what Dan was talking about in that reinvestment, and this is one of the really cool things that participants in multifamily can gain from their participation, is the depreciation. And so it's not just distributions that you get from the property itself, but right now we have, in addition to that, bonus depreciation. So I'm going to share a K1 here, and yes, I did redact it, so you guys don't have to get your notes out or anything like that. But this guy invested $100,000. So, in your case, Dan, if year 5, that example, and he put all of his money back into there, he would be investing $100,000. And so all of the money that the guy would make, or gal, this particular person invested $100,000 and got a negative $77,865 K1.
Terrible investment.
So because this is the first year, and this particular investor, this is his first multifamily investment, he's not going to be able, he may or may not be able to use all this. Now, he has other businesses too, so this is directly reflected on his personal income tax. So he would been able to reduce his personal income tax by $77,800 that year. Now, I don't know about you, but that would definitely reduce my tax burden to the IRS. And if you can't use all that, you're allowed to carry it over. And this is one of the great things about multifamily, and it's not the only thing that I love about multifamily, but it is one of the great things about multifamily.
Yeah, and this ties into the idea about it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep. And that's getting into the idea of the perpetual energy machine again. And like if you're making $1 million, but you're paying so much in taxes that it reduces it down to what, 500,000, then like what was the point of going and making that extra $500,000?
Yeah, what I'd like to do is, with that model I put together, I would like to create another example that shows like a standard long-term capital gains tax rate being applied versus, a more realistic effective tax rate, just for the case of an example. And just, to clarify what Rodney showed there for everyone watching this, the bonus depreciation you mentioned is something that you capture in year 1. And so that's negative 77 on that deal. Probably won't be there the next year. It'll be negative, but not as negative, or maybe around 0, maybe a little bit positive. But with bonus depreciation, you get that big negative chunk in the first year, and then every subsequent year is going to have some benefit, but not nearly as much as the first. So doing that kind of thing with the bonus depreciation is really great if people are doing like a deal a year, because then every year is just bonus, assuming that rule doesn't change. It definitely won't while we've got Trump in office, but depending on, how the next election goes, I hope that doesn't go anywhere, but even if it doesn't, just the regular old standard depreciation is still nice. You're still going to take, your effective tax rate on an investment from, 15, 20, 25%, whatever your tax bracket is, down to like 5 or 10, maybe, even with just regular old straight line depreciation. So I'd like to build another one of those models that has like an effective tax rate of like maybe 8 or 9%, pretty conservative, and then like a standard long-term capital gains tax rate, and just show like how much that impacts things after 20 years.
That would be a
It's
great
huge.
model.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a
I'm
huge
glad
impact.
you brought that up, Dan, that investing in a deal a year is going to get you that bonus depreciation each year. Of course, as long as that lasts, right? We don't know how long that's going to last, because somebody might get in office and decide that we don't need that. But
hopefully not.
I not to boast, but to
you can boast. It's okay.
Okay. All right. So with my K1s this year, I just felt like I needed to share with you guys how much money I made. Bottom line. You guys ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
$368.
That is modest.
I know.
So what's your passive freedom number again? Like your financial freedom number is lower than that?
Yeah, that's the best. That is one of the best parts about. That's one of the best parts about real estate, though. Really, I mean, people miss it early on. They look at like how much money they can make, but when you get to the tax impact, it's like that's when
Massive.
it's like a no-brainer. That's when it's like, okay, this doesn't compare to anything. Like the tax benefits are just insane, and people, I think, just dismiss that because taxes are kind of like an afterthought. They just don't even.
Well, to your point earlier, when you first showed us the spreadsheet, is the fact that it's really hard to calculate these things and see them without actually putting them into a spreadsheet and calculating it, right? Like it's hard to visualize what are the tax benefits, how is this 50,000 going to compound over this period of time. So until you actually calculate and show it, you don't really see it. It's all just kind of fictional and imaginary. And that's why a lot of times in these investments, it's kind of like a Christmas present at the end of the year when you get it and you're like, wait, what?
Yeah, no, it's fantastic.
So, guys, we are winding to the top of the hour here, and what should our parting words be?
Financial freedom is within your reach. It is a perfectly reasonable goal. It's not outlandish, and it's more than likely way easier to get it than you think. That's mine. What do you guys got?
Don't talk all at once there, Anthony. I think I would say it's a mindset. It's a find your why. It's an educate yourself. The Richest Man in Babylon is a great book to read, just to kind of understand how simplified finances can be. It doesn't have to be super complicated.
Yeah, simpler is better. That's for sure.
I'm going to go a completely different direction. I'm going to say, because one of the things that we haven't talked about yet is, and we're not going to get to tonight, and we'll save it for a future episode, is investing in yourself as the most important investment that you're going to make. Right, that 50,000 is great, and it's going to compound. That's going to pay huge dividends in the long run, but the most important investment is still the one that you make in yourself, and expanding your knowledge, your capabilities, your skill sets, and that's what's really going to see you through hard times, right? Because who knows, like a lightning bolt might strike down the building next week and just obliterate it. It might just fall off the side of a cliff. But if you have the skill sets and the competencies to be able to adapt and handle that situation, then it doesn't really matter what life throws at you. And that goes right now with the pandemic that we're experiencing. The people who are able to not just get shut down, closed off in their minds and their bodies, and they're able to like adapt. It's a Darwinian phrase, right? Adapt or die. The species that is best at adapting is the one that lives, not necessarily survival of the fittest or the strongest. So I'd really encourage, the first thing to getting onto that path of financial freedom is really looking inward and saying, okay, what are the investments I need to make in myself? What are those mindsets that I need to change? What are those limiting beliefs that I hold about money or about my ability to make it, and start there.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of add on to that a little bit too. You mentioned the education piece, which is huge. And then I think the next piece to add on to that is um, knowing the right people and knowing as many people as you can. Because education is great, but if you just sit at home all day reading and watching YouTube videos and getting educated, it's really easy to not actually take any action. But if you surround yourself with people who are where you want to be in 5, 10 years, like people who have already achieved financial freedom, or maybe you decide real estate's your thing, put yourself in the room with people who are like 5 or 10 years ahead of you. So educate yourself and then be around those people who are already killing it. And your success is pretty much guaranteed at that point. It's only a matter of time. So,
Yep, absolutely, I agree with that.
I like it.
Absolutely.
Well, good show, guys. Good conversation. Janelle, before we take off, do you have any questions that you'd like to throw at these two fine gentlemen?
Last chance. No sports.
No
questions.
chance ever again.
No sports.
We do need to looking at doing a show on investing in yourself. That
Yes.
I think would be a good topic.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. Maybe next week.
Hey,
Awesome.
she said we did a good job.
Thank you, Janelle.
Good. I feel like we accomplished something this evening. I like it.
We did. Thank you guys for stopping, and we'll be back again next week.